establishing shot of London in the spring of 1894. The city is bustling with activity, but there's an underlying sense of unease. The camera pans across the skyline, then zooms in on a newspaper headline announcing the murder of Ronald Adair. Interior of a gentleman's club. Well-dressed men are gathered around, discussing the Adair murder in hushed tones. The atmosphere is tense and somber. Dr. Watson sits in his study, surrounded by newspapers and case files. He appears deep in thought as he tries to apply Sherlock Holmes' methods to the Adair case. Flashback to Watson and Holmes working on a case together. They are examining evidence, with Holmes making brilliant deductions. Watson looks on in admiration. Watson reading the inquest evidence, his expression growing more troubled as he realizes the complexity of the case and how much he misses Holmes's expertise. Introducing Ronald Adair. He is seen in his Park Lane residence, engaged in quiet, respectable activities like reading or writing letters. Adair's mother and sister arrive home from Australia. They are greeted warmly by Ronald, and the family appears happy and united. Adair goes about his daily life moving in high society circles. He attends events, socializes with friends, and appears content with his quiet, conventional existence. Ominous foreshadowing. Adair is seen going about his routine, unaware of the impending tragedy. The camera lingers on a clock showing the time is between 10 and 11 km p.m. Adair playing whist at his club, looking focused and engaged. He wins a small amount, and his fellow players congratulate him. Flashback to Adair's significant win with Colonel Moran. The two men are seen celebrating their victory, but there's a sense of tension between them. Adair returns home at 10 p.m. The servant lights a fire in his sitting room, but opens the window due to smoke. Adair settles in for the evening. Time passes. The camera focuses on the clock as it ticks towards 11:15 p.m. The atmosphere grows increasingly tense. Adair's mother and sister return home, finding the door locked. They call for help, and the door is forced open. They discover Adair's body and are shocked and horrified. Close-up of Adair's body, focusing on the fatal head wound. The camera pans to the table, showing the piles of coins, banknotes, and a mysterious piece of paper with names and figures. Close-up of the locked door to Adair's sitting room. Police investigators examine it closely, looking for signs of forced entry or tampering. Investigators examine the window, looking for signs of entry. They measure the drop to the ground below and inspect the flower bed for disturbances. Close-up of the crocuses and grass strip below the window. They appear undisturbed, adding to the mystery. Investigators examine Adair's body, focusing on the fatal bullet wound. They look for clues and discuss the unusual circumstances. Wide shot of the busy Park Lane street. People go about their daily lives, unaware of the mystery unfolding nearby. Dr. Watson sits in his study, surrounded by newspapers and notes on the Adair case. He appears deep in thought, trying to piece together the facts. Montage of Watson, considering various theories, each one visualized as a thought bubble. The bubbles burst as he dismisses each theory. Watson leaves his house, determined to investigate further. He walks through the streets of London, deep in thought. Watson arrives at the corner of Cavendish Square and Park Lane. He observes a group of loafers and a plainclothes detective discussing the case. Watson moves closer to the group, trying to hear the detective's theory. He looks skeptical as he listens. Watson withdraws from the group, shaking his head in disgust at the absurd theory. He collides with an elderly, deformed book collector. Close-up of the scattered books. One title, The Origin of Tree Worship, stands out. Watson tries to apologize to the book collector, but the man turns away with a snarl of contempt and disappears into the crowd. Watson arrives at 427 Park Lane. He examines the low wall and railing separating the house from the street. Watson enters the garden, looking for clues. He examines the ground and the exterior of the house. Watson looks up at the inaccessible window. He appears more puzzled than ever, unable to find a way the murderer could have entered. Watson returns home to his study in Kensington. He looks tired and deep in thought. As he enters, the maid announces a visitor. To Watson's surprise, it is a strange old book collector he encountered earlier, carrying a stack of books. The old book collector stands in Watson's study, apologizing for his earlier rudeness. He looks contrite and eager to make amends. Close-up of the book collector's face as he receives. He is Watson's neighbor. His expression is friendly and slightly mischievous. The book collector offers Watson some volumes at a bargain price. He gestures to the books, looking persuasive and enthusiastic. Watson turns to look at his bookshelf, considering the offer. His expression is thoughtful and slightly skeptical. Watson turns back to the book collector, only to find Sherlock Holmes standing in his place.